Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Hector Navarro, and today I'm breaking down one of the most recent depictions of the story of Captain America, his origin, his allies, his victories, his failures, and the love of his life. No, I'm not talking about Bucky, but close. And it all lives in a pretty unlikely place, the theater. That's right, I'm talking about ROGERS the Musical, the extended version of the fictional stage show we saw at the beginning of the Hawkeye Disney Plus series that is now real and currently playing at the Disney California Adventure theme park right next to Disneyland here on the West Coast. So before we can start belting out our rendition of Save the City, I gotta remind you that New Rockstars is now 3 channels. This main one, the break room, and the deep dive. So make sure you're subscribed to all 3 because it's free entertainment and it helps us out a lot. All right, it's showtime. Let's get into the production history of this amazing one-act musical playing at the Hyperion Theater in Hollywoodland at California Adventure, and how it all started with the Hawkeye version we saw on Disney Plus. Clearly taking inspiration from the real-life Broadway mega hit Hamilton, the fictional ROGERS the Musical was thought up by Hawkeye's head writer Jonathan Igla and was approved to be added to the show after Hawkeye director Rhys Thomas pitched it to Kevin Feige. Feige then reached out to composer and lyricist Mark Shaman after they met at a Mary Poppins Returns event, and Shaman and composer and lyricist Scott Whitman wrote the number Save the City, imagining it to be the final number of Act 1 of a longer stage musical. In the first episode of Hawkeye, Clint Barton takes his kids to see ROGERS during a vacation in New York City, and the show reminds Barton of the loss of his best friend Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, during the events of Avengers Endgame. And when that first episode dropped, Save the City became a huge hit, with fans praising its cheesiness and great in-universe inaccuracies that added world building to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The song was released as a single and even added to the second volume of the Hawkeye soundtrack. Those in-universe inaccuracies, like how Ant-Man was written as being present during the Battle of New York from the first Avengers movie in 2012, even though we know he wasn't there, led to fan speculation about how much information the general public in the MCU had about major Earth-threatening events. Then the Miss Marvel show revealed that the public would get a lot of information about the fight in Endgame secondhand, like through Scott Lang's appearances on podcasts. Boy, Ant-Man is really at the center of the public's perceptions of the Avengers, huh? Maybe it makes sense as to why Scott wrote a book to capitalize on his newfound popularity. Look out for The Little Guy, out later this year. Pre-order your copy today. That's a real book. They really made it a book. So, after Hawkeye was released in 2021, Save the City was performed live last year at the D23 Expo in 2022, and after that, we learned in January of this year, 2023, that an extended version of ROGERS the Musical was being developed as a 30-minute, one-act play to be performed at California Adventure. Christopher Lennertz, who's the musical composer for the Amazon series The Boys, and who also did the music for the Agent Carter one-shot and the Agent Carter television series, would be hired to be the conductor and arranger for the musical, writing music for 5 original songs. At the Musical Anatomy of a Superhero panel during this year's San Diego Comic-Con, moderated by Michael Giacchino, Christopher Lennertz talked about how everyone working on the musical agreed that the key to expanding the Save the City song into a larger story surrounding Steve Rogers was to zero in on the love story between him and Peggy Carter. Because, quote, love stories make the best musicals. And that became the backbone for the entirety of ROGERS the Musical. And Michael Giacchino also confirmed at that panel that Kevin Feige loves musicals. So there you go. Use that information however you like. Executive Creative Director for Disney Live Entertainment Dan Fields shared on the This Week in Marvel podcast that although ROGERS the Musical was played farcically in the Hawkeye Disney Plus show because it had to be to help Clint Barton in his journey, when expanding this out, they decided that the rest of the show didn't have to be in that tone. And they were right. Also, another fun detail about the show is because it's been on during the release of the Secret Invasion series, we've seen a Skrull usher stepping outside of the theater and walking around from time to time. A great addition to the Marvel Disney Plus costume character appearances around the California Adventure Park, following in the tradition of Moon Knight or Werewolf by Night or President Loki, specific to whatever Disney Plus show was airing at the time. Also, a shout out to Ordinary Adventures for letting us use their footage of ROGERS the Musical. Go check out their YouTube channel covering theme parks across the country. There is a link in the description. Thanks, guys. So now we're almost ready to start the show. During the pre-show, while everyone is finding a seat and getting comfortable, there's a radio on stage playing old school, and I mean old school, jazz music of the early 20th century time period, like the kind Steve Rogers grew up with. One of the songs is Bugle Call Rag by Benny Goodman, which eagle-eared MCU fans would recognize from the first episode of What If? What If Captain Carter were the first Avenger, that is played during the montage where Peggy Carter is just whomping Nazi Hydra goons. Love that song. Gets me pumped. And after the announcer kicks us off, we meet the Starkettes, three women who act like the classic Greek chorus or the Muses in the animated Hercules movie, based on the women on stage during Howard Stark's presentation of his hover car at the World Exposition of Tomorrow in Captain America: The First Avenger, who begin the US opening song, introducing us to main man Steve Rogers when he was still normal Steve, or as fans affectionately refer to him, Skinny Steve, with a little bit of that Alan Silvestri score from The First Avenger. Plus, we briefly meet Peggy Carter and James Buchanan Bucky Barnes, who's already enlisted in the 107th Division, and Steve yells after him, "Don't win the war till I get there." The first 2/3 of the Rogers show are basically a retelling of Captain America: The First Avenger, so expect to hear a lot of familiar lines. Shout out to writers. US opening also has a reference to 1A, which is what Steve needed to be classified to be approved for the Army. The next song is I Want You, referencing the giant Uncle Sam recruitment poster hanging in the background. But it's really Disney Princess Steve Rogers' I Want song, and it's incredible. My favorite new song of the entire show. Rogers the Musical can be summed up by this song, and it's a love letter to the creators of Captain America, artist Jack Kirby and writer Joe Simon, who put so much of themselves into this character, and who had Captain America punching Adolf Hitler on the cover of his first comic an entire year before the United States entered World War II. This is why this show works, because Steve Rogers is such an earnest, heartfelt guy who knows what to stand up for, helping people however he can. It's a testament to the genius of Jack Kirby and Joe Simon and all the writers and artists who have contributed to Captain America over the decades. It's in this I Want You song we also get our first utterance of I Can Do This All Day. Don't worry, it'll come back. We finally meet Dr. Abraham Erskine, played by the same actor who played Bucky earlier, and the return of Agent Carter. We hear more lines lifted from The First Avenger. So you want to go overseas and kill some Nazis? I don't want to kill anybody. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from. And the experiment begins. The next song is a brilliant incorporation of Star Spangled Man from Captain America: The First Avenger, which was written by Alan Menken and David Zippel. We cut to the Vita Ray experiment to make Steve a super soldier. We hear some classic Skinny Steve awkwardness with maybe you shouldn't examine me in front of a beautiful dame. Woman, agent. Peggy replies with, you have no idea how to talk to women, do you? This is the longest conversation I've ever had with one. Women aren't exactly lining up to dance with a guy they might step on. Maybe you just haven't found the right partner. Rogers the Musical does a wonderful job of picking up these incredibly important moments for Steve Rogers and stuffing them into the fun and inspiring musical numbers. In fact, after some more lines from The First Avenger, Professor Erskine asking Steve that whatever happens, promise me that you'll stay who you are, not a perfect soldier, but a good man. And we can hear the yell coming from the chamber, no, I can do this! It's no surprise that this leads to a cheer moment from the live audience. When Steve emerges, just like the improvised moment from actress Haley Atwell, who played Peggy Carter in the movie, Peggy on stage touches Steve's chest. Hey, if you want Broadway-level skin and hair care at a community theater budget, let me tell you a little bit about our friends over at Geologie. Geologie is a 23-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company recognized in Men's Health, Oprah Daily, Hypebeast, Birdie, Esquire, and GQ. Geologie's products use just a handful of proven, powerful ingredients that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades. Geologie can help you fight acne, reduce oilness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark or puffy under eyes, have smoother, hydrated skin, and target signs of aging. Everything you need to keep your skin healthy no matter how much you soak in the pool this summer. Don't know where to start? Geologie can create a simple and effective skincare or hair care routine for you. All you gotta do is take a quick 30-second quiz. Right now, if you use code NEWROCKSTARS100, Geologie will give you 100% off of their award-winning skincare trial set. Let me say that again, 100% off of their award-winning skincare trial set. You'll also get an additional bonus offer of up to 30% off of one skin, hair, or body product when you add it to your trial. It's truly a wild offer, one of the best they've ever given our audience. Click on the link in the description or go to geolog.ie/rockstars100 to get started. Next, we meet a colonel, probably the show's version of Chester Phillips, as we move into the corny mini USO tour, all still hearing the amazing Star-Spangled Man, just like in the movie. Steve suits up with the leather jacket look, just like Cap's first unofficial outing as Captain America when he disobeyed orders to save Bucky and the 107th in the first Avenger. Then, at the end of this number, streamers! Yay! Red, white, and blue, paper. Next, Peggy appears to tell Steve that the 107th's been captured. We get a little bit of Just One Dance, singling out Steve and Peggy's tragic romance that never was. Back to Star-Spangled Man, we get the war montage. The Howling Commandos are mentioned. So are Red Skull and Hydra being defeated by Steve. Captain Rogers saving his childhood best friend Bucky and the 107th, all while seeing a really cool comic book panel montage on stage, perfectly framing these moments in Steve's life. Again, it's another tribute and reminder of the character's comic book origins, where all this started, the comics. Thanks, Joe and Jack. The end of the number brings up the window of the Red Skull's bomber plane, the Valkyrie. Peggy is at the desk on the radio, stage left, and we all know what's coming next. Heartbreak, tragedy. No mention of the Stork Club, though, probably because it's too hard to rhyme. Then, static. Steve sleeps, and we hear the ticking of a clock, even a dial-up internet noise. Not a brain-loading noise, it's a dial-up internet noise. That's what it is, you young people. I'm not that old. Everybody knows that. The country moves on. We hear S.H.I.E.L.D. agents say, "We found him. This one's waited long enough," just like the opening to Captain America: The First Avenger. Then the biggest comedic number of the show is next. What You Missed, which is our introduction to Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., played by the same actor who played the World War II colonel briefly earlier. What You Missed may be inspired by the song in Hamilton, What Did I Miss? And it just fits so perfectly. Steve is sitting in a bed, getting caught up on the past 70 years. The role of Nick Fury in this is hilarious, and comparisons made to the role of the genie in the Aladdin stage show are accurate. He's the comic relief. He sings, he dances. It's Nick Fury, how you've never seen him before. Where's my spot? He yells. Then he says, "Here's a notebook, Steve." That's a reference to the notebook that Steve pulled out at the beginning of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Some of the pop culture and history Fury rattles off includes the show I Love Lucy, which WandaVision seemed to pull a lot of inspiration from, and Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's dad. In the background during What You Missed, we see a billboard for the Lion King stage show, another massive hit in the Broadway world, and an ad for the World Exposition of Tomorrow, maybe similar to the Stark Expo from Iron Man 2. And we finally get to Fury introducing Steve to the concept of the Avengers. There's an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people to accomplish a task, to be something greater, just like we heard in the first Avengers movie. And when the ROGERS the musical Avengers appear, the crowd loses their minds. They go nuts. These are the same Avengers we saw in Save the City on Hawkeye, with their casual looks as opposed to like full-on superhero outfits. And we'll see them again later when Save the City starts up again. You better believe. Don't worry. Fury calls Steve the first Avenger, then mentions Captain Marvel, off-planet, so not ideal, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow, Ant-Man, who again wasn't actually there, but this is all based on knowledge the in-universe public thinks they know, and Hawkeye, who Fury says is, quote, here as well, making us think this little jab at Hawkeye just adds to the discomfort and annoyance Clint Barton would have felt watching the show with his kids. The rest of the Avengers Nick Fury lists off, but we don't see, are Black Panther, Wanda Maximoff, the legendary Star-Lord, the Vision, the Falcon, the Amazing Spider-Man, the Man Without Fear Daredevil, Rocket and Groot, who doesn't know yet that he's a raccoon, a pair of sisters, Blue and Green, that's Nebula and Gamora, daughters of Thanos, the Winter Soldier, who Fury surprisingly breezes over. It's like, buddy, Steve might want to know about that guy. War Machine, and Doctor Strange. Then Steve is given a Winter Soldier-style jacket to wear as his Captain America costume for the remainder of the show. And finally, we get to Save the City, but a shorter version than the full thing they previously recorded for Hawkeye. Steve pulls a shirt change, ditching his white shirt for a blue one with a star on it, completing the Captain America look. And the actor who plays Erskine is now a New York citizen, and Fury is now a really cool-looking Loki. The song brings back the iconic line, I can do this all day, but brings it back again at the end with a really somber version after more and more catastrophes plague the planet and Steve gets tired of all the fighting. An announcement blares out, attention, citizens of Sokovia, the city is under attack by artificial intelligence, referencing referencing the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. Then another, attention, Washington, D.C., the city is under attack by the Winter Soldier. But curiously, this is placed here in the show, where in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hydra attacked DC in 2014 and Ultron attacked in 2015. So maybe this was swapped around to keep adding those inaccuracies, or because the producers of the show didn't want to make it seem like Bucky's storyline was going to take focus. But instead, the focus here is on Steve continuing to fight and fight and fight, exhausting himself. Next is the announcement that Wakanda is under attack by Thanos, referencing Avengers Infinity War. And Steve is looking tired. We'd be tired too, buddy. We'd be tired too. And that's when Steve meets Old Man Steve Rogers, played by the actor who plays Skinny Steve, with a familiar "on your left," sending chills down our spines. Old Man Steve pulls out the Time Stone because endings can be rewritten. Then he sits down on a bench, just like in Avengers Endgame. The final new song in the show is End of the Line, and it's Steve singing with Steve. They even move their legs when they sit down the same. So here I am, now and also then. Current Steve is looking into the past, seeing images of himself before the super soldier serum, then him holding Mjolnir at the Battle of Earth in Avengers Endgame, what looks like the Winter Soldier, and then even Sam Wilson as Cap in the future. But who's waiting at the end of the line? Peggy Carter in her iconic hat and suit from the Agent Carter 2-season, should have been more, television series. The clock is ticking, and current Steve is back in the past. Peggy Carter is in her beautiful red dress from the bar scene in The First Avenger. Steve's late, but he's here. The audience gets what we've been waiting for. The reprise of the song Just One Dance. A dance between Steve and Peggy. And I Can Do This All Day kiss. It is emotional. Whoo, boy, you try not to cry, okay? It's hard, all right? It's hard. Finally, the show ends with the last song, a reprise of Save the City, because of course they want you humming that on your way out the door. Overall, Rogers the Musical is fantastic. It's romantic and fun and silly and earnest, and it's a love letter to the character of Steve Rogers, Captain America. Even when the show tries to poke fun at the ridiculousness of the whole concept, a musical based on a Marvel superhero, it can't help but take the character seriously. And to me, that's a testament to the creators Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, who infused this comic book hero with real New Yorker bravery and heroism. Steve Rogers is the type of person we should all strive to be like, so thanks Jack and Joe for creating him. We've learned Rogers the Musical will be closing on August 31st at the end of this month, and that's a shame considering how great the show is and how much work was put into it. But hopefully it can make a return to the Hyperion at California Adventure in the future, maybe with some updated elements as more and more of the Marvel Cinematic Universe unfolds in theaters and on our TV screens. Maybe we can get a Wilson the Musical update chronicling the life of Sam Wilson, Captain America, or a Carter the Musical that shows us the alternate history of Peggy Carter being the one given the super soldier serum. Either way, Rogers the Musical has been a really fun addition to the MCU and one that fans are going to carry with them for a very long time. Now, hopefully, we can get a release of the music so fans can enjoy listening to it over and over again, adding to its popularity, just like what happened with Hamilton and encouraging California Adventure to bring the show back in a big way. So that's all for us today, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to all 3 new Rockstars channels, and we'll see you next time. Bye.